Steve Jobs by Christopher1. Steve Paul Jobs was born on February 24, 1955 in San Francisco. His parents' names were Paul Jobs and Clara Jobs. He was adopted after he was born. He spent his childhood in Silicon Valley. He never did any team sports and he only did competitive swimming. He was very interested in electronic gadgets because he spent so much of his time in his neighbor's garage. His neighbor worked at a computer company. The elementary school he attended was Monte Lama Elementary School, and after he graduated elementary school, he attended Creighton Middle School. The school's location was in a poor area and many kids were bullied. One day when he came home, he told his parents that he wanted to transfer schools because he could not stand his school. When Steve Jobs was a teenager, he went to India in search of enlightenment. When he came back, he was not satisfied because there was an angry mob of people who were mad at Steve Jobs for protesting about being sold watered-down buffalo milk. Even though the mob was mad at him, it marked a turning point in his life. Steve Jobs is the best-known co-founder of Apple, and he is also the CEO of Apple. He also served as chief executive at Pixar Animation Studios. Jobs was also a help to the movie Toy Story, and Steve Jobs nearly brought his company into debt. Steve Jobs came out with the first iPod in 2001, and he had no idea how the iPod would affect his company. The first iPod was a Nano, and it was a very successful music player. Jobs also created the music store called iTunes. In 1997, the Apple II came out, became the most successful computer. In 1983, the computer Lisa came out, and it had a mouse, and it was also the first commercial computer. In 1984, the Macintosh came out, then the NeXT came out. Then the iMac came out. When the iMac came out, it saved the company from being destroyed. In 2001, the iPod came out and was very successful electronic. After the iPod came out, the iPhone came out 6 years later. Then the last thing that Steve Jobs ever made was the iPad. The iPad was a very good idea because no company had ever made a successful tablet. A year after the iPad came out, Steve Jobs sadly died at the age of 56. He suffered from pancreatic cancer and he died at home with his family surrounding him. He died on October 5th, 2011. What if Steve Jobs never existed? If he never was here, we would never have any of the Apple products, and there would be no such thing as iTunes. The world would have been changed a lot if Steve Jobs never lived, because almost everybody has an Apple product, and that would all be gone if he never lived. 3 inspirational quotes. Number 1, design is not what it looks like and feels like. Design is how it works. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Number 3, design is a funny word. Some people think design means how it looks, but of course, if you dig deeper, it's really how it works. Steve Jobs. Nicknames. Some people like to call him a crybaby because he would cry about the littlest things. Example of this is that sometimes he would go into his office and cry because his coworkers could not get a task done. I hope that you have learned how Steve Jobs contributed to today's technology. Do you have any questions?